Hello friends, this is Durga again from ITversity, a one-stop shop to learn all the technologies. At this time we are talking about setting up virtual machines on a bare metal server provisioned from OVH. And so far we have covered how to set up ESXi and how it can be accessed by using Windows as well as Mac. And also we have downloaded a couple of softwares such as CentOS and a very important software called pfSense. So pfSense is a firewall come virtual router, and in our context we will be using it as a virtual router more than a firewall. So let me explain you on a whiteboard why this is required, why we need to have virtual router. I will let you know. I will try to explain using whiteboard, which might make more sense. So I am opening a new diagram here. Okay, so I need to change the pen which I am going to use. Okay, it's in the wrong direction. So let me close it out. There is some issue. New. Okay. And let me start with pen. Okay. So I am trying to set up the environment from my home. This is my home and this is me, and I am using a browser to set up environment on the remote server. So this is the data center. In our case we are using OVH. It could be anything. It could be internal data center of your employer, and there will be bunch of servers. And we have provisioned one of them. Okay, so let's say we have provisioned this one and we are trying to access this server. So the reason why we are able to access that one is when we actually provision the server, we got something called public IP which is associated with it. Okay, when we actually set up ESXi host, that IP is used, which is a public IP, is used to access the ESXi host, which is nothing but operating system that is installed on that server. Now we want to create a virtual machine. We want to create virtual machines on top of it. So let me start one more page here to draw. So already I have depicted that we are trying to use a remote server. Okay, so and that remote server is this one, and the configuration what we have used is nothing but 32 gigabyte, 8 CPU, 16 threads, and 4 terabyte raw storage, and we are using RAID, hence we can use up to 2 terabytes. So that is the storage capacity which we got, and we have set up ESXi on it. So ESXi is nothing but a lightweight operating system which will facilitate you to create and manage virtual machines. Now when we create other virtual machines, it will look like this. Okay, so let's say we want to create 6 of them. 6. So if we have to access, so this virtual machine is like a physical server, and we should be able to access using an IP. And if we decide to go with public IP, and then we have to provision 6 public IPs. So we are trying to access the server from our home, right? This is home and this is me, and we are using browser or some tool to access these things. So we have access to the ESXi host with the public IP which we got along with the server. And if we have to set up virtual machines, and if we have to access those virtual machines, either we have to assign a public IP for each of them so that we can access all of them, or we have to log into one of those machines. So we can also have one public IP to connect to one of the virtual machine, and from there we can actually connect to other ones. So if we have to buy six IP addresses, we have to pay it's $3 per IP address. So we have to pay $18 for the 6 IP addresses. Rather, we can only spend $3, get access to one of the virtual machines, and from there we can access the other virtual machines. If you don't mind spending $18, well and good, you can spend $18 and get public IPs to connect to other virtual machines also. Even then, when you actually set up software such as Puppet, Chef, which are DevOps tools, or big data on it, or a NoSQL database such as Cassandra, MongoDB, or any software which require multiple hosts, we should not set up the cluster on multiple hosts using public IP. So there is a reason for that. So I will explain that. So you have a, I'm opening another page here and going to the appropriate pen here. So let's say you have multiple servers in a data center, and all to facilitate connectivity to these multiple servers. So when we say servers, it will have Ethernet ports in them, typically or NIC cards in them, and there will be a port to connect to those NIC cards. Typically there will be 2 of them. There can be more also. So the reason why these NIC cards are available is to facilitate us to access these servers over the network. They will use a network switch. So let me use some other color for the network switch. So red color are actual physical servers. Now I am depicting a network switch. Let me use yellow color here. So this is the network switch, and the network switch will have multiple ports, one connecting to public network, and other all these servers will be connected to this. So the external cable will come and plugged into this port, and then if we have to use the internet that is available through this wire to other hosts, all these things has to be connected to this network switch. Okay, the same way we connect our routers at home, the same way we have to do it even on the physical servers. Okay, so now if we try to use only one network switch, and if we to access this over this network, we need to give a public IP for all these things, and we will be able to access these things. And if we use public IP for everything, then there will be contention on this network switch, and there will be impact on the overall network. For that reason, there will be another network switch which will facilitate to provide a private network between the servers, where it is completely immune from the public network. So there will be another network switch. So in this case, let me use this color, and even this one will have multiple ports, and all these servers will be connected to each other using this network switch. So this is called as private IP, public network. Using public network, we will try to access these servers using public IP address. And to communicate between these, we will try to connect these things using fiber optics. And so this one will be typically Ethernet, and Ethernet cable will be plugged between this network switch and each of the server. Whereas a very high speed fiber optic cable will be used to connect the servers to this network switch, which will facilitate the private network. So we have to use private networking to communicate to each other, to set up any software in a cluster, which means that the software has to be deployed on multiple nodes, and they have to talk to each other to accomplish whatever that software is supposed to accomplish. Okay, so typically we will have a public IP and private IP. Private IPs are used to intercommunicate between the nodes. Public IPs role will be limited for the public access. So when we get the server on the OVH, okay, there are two networks, two NIC cards on each of the server, and to provide what we say high availability from the networking perspective, all these servers are connected, are multiplexed for the same public network. So let's say in this scenario, this network switch is connected to this host through this cable. If this cable goes down, then this server is not accessible. For that reason, what some data centers, what they will do is, they will have multiple ports connected through redundant network switch. Both the cables or both the NICs, which are these ones, will be pointing to the same network or connected to the same network switch, so that even if one NIC card goes down or one network cable goes down, still the server will be accessible on the other one. So in OVH, I am not 100% sure. There are two NICs, but we cannot use the second NIC to set up the private network. For that purpose, we have to have a virtual router. So using virtual router, they will try to communicate with each other. It will simulate the second network switch. There won't be any physical network switch, but it will have a virtual network switch. It is just to simulate the real world scenario. In reality, it might be using the same network switch which is used for the public networking. I am not 100% sure, but to simulate the private networking, we create a virtual router, which is pfSense. Okay, so to set up pfSense, so let us go back to this one. To set up pfSense, what we have to do is, first we have to create a virtual host. Virtual host means it will have memory, CPU and storage. It will not have anything else. On that virtual host, we have to assign a public IP. So we will provision a public IP. We need to buy that from OVH. With the server, we get only one public IP, and that public IP is already used for the ESXi host or host itself. Once we get the operating system to connect to that server from anywhere, we are using that public IP already. So for that reason, we cannot use it for other purposes. For getting the virtual router, what we have to do is, we have to create a virtual host first, which means we have to allocate certain amount of CPU, memory and storage, and then we have to also assign a public IP while setting up pfSense on that virtual host. pfSense is nothing but a operating system of type FreeBSD Linux. FreeBSD Linux is one type of operating system. So first what we will do, we will create one virtual host and then set up pfSense, which will get us a free BSD operating system along with the other modules that are required to support virtual router as well as firewall. Okay, so we have to install pfSense on this server, and we have to configure in such a way that whatever new public IP we are trying to get is being allocated to this host, and then once that is done, it will create a virtual router similar to simulating the private network switch which is being used for the private network, and then we will be able to assign a second IP for each of the new virtual machine which we will create. So first we will start with one virtual host, install pfSense which runs on FreeBSD operating system, allocate or assign the public IP to this pfSense host, and then start creating the virtual machines, and those virtual machines will be using the private IP to interconnect between them, and also one of the hosts will have a public IP associated with it. So first we will start with the pfSense, then we will set up additional virtual machines, and one of the virtual machine we will get a third public IP allocated to it. So in the end, we might have as many number of virtual machines as we need, but there will be only 3 public IPs, one for the ESXi host, second for the pfSense, and third for one of the virtual machines which will act as gateway to connect to the other virtual machines. And we will go through this process as we proceed further. So that being said, let us provision couple of public IPs for pfSense as well as for the virtual machine, so that we can assign them as and when we set up the environment, and it takes time to get those public IPs from OVH. So let's submit an order. Once we receive the public IPs, we will see the steps which are involved in setting up pfSense and configure virtual router using pfSense, and then create the rest of the virtual machines. So you go here, click on IP, and order additional IPs. In this case, you have to choose the bare metal server on which you want to get more public IPs. So this is the bare metal server which I am trying to use. So by default, there can be 64 public IPs allocated with this host. You can see it here, and click on next. We'll be buying 2. If we come back to this again, the number will reduce. So this wizard can only order 1 or 4 or 8 or 16, etc. In this case, I am only ordering 1 because I need only 2, one for pfSense and the second for the virtual machine. So I am placing 1 order here. Click on next. I accept the terms and conditions. Next, confirm. I'm not sure whether the fee is monthly or once in lifetime. I'm not 100% sure, but we have to pay this $3. I think it's a one-time charge. You don't need to pay every month. Okay. So here, as long as the server is up and running, that IP address will be with you. So in parallel, I would like to order 1 more IP. This is the server on which I want to use. Okay, the order didn't go through, means not completed yet. That's why it is showing as 64, otherwise it should have shown as 63 only. So I'm selecting 1 more IP located in USA. Click on next. You can read it here. If you have a server with free IPs included, you will not be billed this activation fee following the renewal of your server. So this is a one-time activation fee. You don't need to pay every time, but the IP address will be lost once you terminate the instance. Okay, click on next. I am not sure. Additional failover IP 1 month. I'm not sure about the terms completely. I'm also new to OVH. So let us finish this order also. Okay, let me pay now. And also I have to complete this payment also. This is done. This is also almost done. So we have placed order for 2 public IPs. One will be used for pfSense and the second one will be used for one of the virtual machine, which will act as gateway when we try to connect to the other virtual machines once we set up all of them. So that being said, I hope you are enjoying the content on the channel. If you like this video, please click on the like button. If you want to provide the feedback, please use the comment section of the video. And if you want to discuss further and learn lot more together, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned. And we will be starting discussion forums, etc., so that we can learn emerging as well as evergreen technologies together. That being said, thank you. Bye.